Leave it to the indies to come up with a fantastic idea of disparate things being meshed together in a way that when you've played it for a few hours, you think, Christ, how's no one invented this game before? And that's usually a hallmark of a game that just feels right. And that's exactly how I would describe Rack and Slay. Rack and Slay is a billiard roguelike dungeon crawler, yes, that's a sentence, where you play as a billiard ball trying to pot all of the monster balls into the various holes in your dungeon. You're doing those through randomly generated levels across a run of either 1, 5 or 10 levels is usually the majority of my playtime with this game. And as you go through it, you've only got a set amount of shots to try and pot all of the monster balls in. If you don't succeed in potting all of the monsters, whatever's left at the end of those shots will then chip away at your health, and you can die and end a run one of two ways. Through that, where the monsters at the end just overwhelm you and you die, or you can pot yourself and lose HP, or run over traps and lose HP, or there's different monsters that give you different status ailments and can hurt you too. There's also like spikes on the wall that you can impale yourself on and lose HP. So it requires some skill to get up and running with Rack and Slay, but it's the kind of skill that I would equate to Peggle. And this game reminds me a lot of Peggle because of the ease of controls and the chain reactionary approach that you can have to this game. And that's because in between levels, you then get to choose from a variety of cards that are picked at random from the ones that you've unlocked through playing the game. And the more you play, the more cards you unlock. There's like over 100. And they get presented in like 2s or 3s, depending on what you're doing. And you get to pick to either upgrade your shot power, upgrade your health, maybe add on some additional tiny balls that will shoot out when you pot or hit someone. It could be that you throw out a bomb that causes an explosion. It could be that you add on spikes around the outside of your ball that can impale a monster and get rid of them, even if you don't get to pot them. It could be that you actually then use those cards to lay down more traps or more health pickups as you go around the board. It could be that you want to have more gems and cash so that you can then buy upgrades to your shot power, amount of shots that you have, your maximum health, that kind of thing. It depends on how you want to build out your billiard ball, and there's lots and lots of options available. But in general, I would say go for more shots wherever possible so that you can either clear the monsters, or if you know you're going to get stuck and something's kind of got lost around a corner or it's just too tricky to get to, you can then aim for some HP health pickups in the hope that you will scrape through that level and live to see another day. The beauty of Rack and Slay is that there's lots and lots of different difficulty levels and variants of this game too. So at the very beginning you start off on difficulty 0 and you can choose a 1, 5 or 10 level run. I strongly recommend going for 10 levels because you get like boss balls fly around, and it really does let you invest in how you want your billiard ball to go. And as you go through these different difficulty levels, once you clear a difficulty, it will then start to remove your HP, lower down the amount of shots that you have, place more enemies on the board, place more different types of enemies on the board. So there's ones that will like steal some coins. There's ones that will roll towards you. There's a bomb one that will trigger an explosion whenever it's potted or you hit it type thing. There's boss ones that will blind you so that you can't see the trajectory of where you're going to shoot or where you're headed. It could be that there's one that will fire little mini balls at you, for example. There's lots of different varieties, and choosing which ones you kind of clear off and get rid of in what order is quite crucial, because sometimes the enemy effects can work in your favour because they also cause that chain reactionary carnage that I was speaking about when you load up your billiard ball with lots of different effects and extra bells and whistles of firepower. The other thing that it then starts to do is just add more of things onto the screen, but reducing down the amount of holes that you have to get them in. So over time it teaches you how to think much more like a billiard table player rather than just kind of relying on chain reactions. but you're always still going to need to do so because quite often in the later difficulties there's more enemies than you have of shots. So you're looking at how can I get 2 for 1 and try and knock multiple balls into holes, or maybe send a chain reaction off that will just blast things around like you're just trying to do one of those blast initial breaks in snooker and hoping that the balls just fly everywhere for the best of it. All of this feels incredibly satisfying to play, and it's super easy to do so because you just right click to point in the direction where you want to go, and then left click, hold and release to just set your power. So it reminds me a little bit of old school golf games, but with the peggle element of sometimes you can perform trick shots or just get a really lucky chain reaction, and you can feel very skilled doing so, even though it was really almost random and luck based that you'd actually got like a really good shot. Outside of those main modes, there's daily challenges, which is super interesting to keep you coming back for more, and they are usually geared towards the harder difficulties, which I found was a bit of a rude awakening when I went straight into it after just a quick go on difficulty 0, thinking, I got this. No, you haven't, Simon. The other things that you've got are wild runs, and that adds on additional like bonus modifiers that carry across the entire game, and that leads you into challenge mode, which gives really extreme variants of how a level can be built out or a run can be built out. So if you're looking for very like heavily tilted challenges, those are where you need to go. The other cool thing I appreciated was the fact that you can view all of the cards that you've unlocked so far, and if you don't want to deal with that repetitive play and XP grind, you can choose to unlock every single card straight out of the box. If you do decide to unlock everything, the game gives you a warning to kind of say you're going to be introduced to mechanics and potential things that haven't been explained to you. But ultimately, it's up to the player to decide whether they want to do the small grind. It does unlock things constantly whenever you're playing Rack and Slay, so that you get that dopamine hit that way, or whether you just want to go full bean straight in. For me, Rack and Slay is a fantastic example of what I would assume is really extensive playtesting, because this is a relatively interesting and novel and unique idea. And it does feel fresh, but it also feels familiar. And for me, that's around understanding what are the key game mechanics that drive your game forward, and how do you craft each thing so that they perfectly complement each other. And that's exactly what Rack and Slay does so well, in a casual way that means that you don't feel like you're committing to like ridiculously long runs. Runs in this game take 15-20 minutes max. And yeah, it feels like a bite-sized, casual, unique and fresh approach to roguelike dungeon crawling, where I get to feel like I'm lucky and playing a sport at the same time, and skilled when it all goes to plan. What's not to love? Rack and Slay is out now. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/Higher Network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.